and welcome to the Nail School and Beauty Academy. I'm Leanne, and today we're going to be looking at air guns, airbrushing and maintenance and cleaning of your machine. Now, airbrushing can be used for a multitude of things, whether it be for spraying on designs on nails, for freehand artwork, using stencils, templates. We cover all of these aspects on the courses, but you can also use it for makeup as well as spraying in designs onto hair, which is a big application at the moment in the hair industry. So it's not just limited to nail art. You can use it for absolutely all sorts. So what we cover in our courses is obviously maintenance and control of your air gun, control of your paint, cleaning your air gun, switching paints, and also different pressure guides for different applications. So if you're interested in those courses, send us an email, a text, or a message on Facebook, and we'll get back to you on that. In the meantime, we're going to go through some maintenance today. Now, airbrush guns come in all different shapes and sizes. This particular one is a Badger gun. As you can see, it's quite dirty. It's been used, so we're going to do cleaning and maintenance of this gun now. You can also get, as I say, multitude of different guns. This one's a pseudo. Similar, everything is all the same on them maintenance wise. The thing that's different is obviously size of needle, the pressure valves and whatnot. So they all have their own features. They're all good in their own way. So we're going to actually look at the gun first, taking apart cleaning and maintenance, and then we'll have a look at the pipes, because we've got different pipes here as well, and we'll have a look at the compressor. Okay, so normally once you've finished with your actual spraying, depending on what you're spraying, will depend on what paint you've actually used in your gun. I know some of my friends actually use these for cake design, so because you can literally just spray your art on. Now, this is just one example of the multitude of different designs that can actually be done with airbrushing. And as you can see, we've got a nice hard line with a fade, a hard line with a fade, and so on. So there are many different things that you can do with an air gun that can't actually be done with anything else. So airbrushing is a unique design format. Okay, as I said, we do run courses on that, so ask us about not a problem, just send us an email and whatnot. So looking inside here, as you can see, we have an area. This is where your paint goes. We have a pressure valve, which is pressed down for the air, and then you pull it back to release your paint from the end of the gun. The further you pull this back, the more paint comes out. Okay, now it's important to note that once you have liquid paint or anything in that well, that your air gun must remain pointed downwards. Never tilt it back, because the paint will run up inside and down into your pressure valve and it will completely clog your gun. Generally speaking, pressure valves are so intricate inside that if paint goes into there, you will need a new valve. So be very careful on that. So we're going to be putting some cleaning solution in here, and I'm going to be taking the gun apart. So first things first, I need to turn the compressor on. There, so the compressor is now running. When that stops, it's up to pressure, and we have airflow, and then you pull back for your liquid. You get a slightly different sound coming through because it's drawing air or ordinarily paint through there. So first things first, you would empty all of your paint onto a piece of tissue or into an airbrush container for excess. Once that's completely empty, you then pour in your cleaning solution. So we actually have premium grade FX2000 Airbrush Cleaner here. Okay, so we're just going to pour some of that into there. And the first thing to do is to just run that through to clean the nozzle. So run through, pulling back, and as you can see, just air and then liquid. You probably can't see the airbrush coming out, or the spray coming out of the gun, because the spray is actually incredibly fine. But as you can see, the liquid has all gone. Okay, so you can see down the bottom inside there, bring it closer to the camera, you can see there is actually a metal bar going through. That's actually a needle, which I'm going to take out in a moment. But before that, we're going to carry on with cleaning. So pouring that more liquid into there, which is the airbrush cleaner, I'm now going to use a Q-tip. You can get pipe cleaners and things like that to clean these air guns, but to be fair, a Q-tip does it just as well. Just important not to push down onto that metal bar that I showed you just a moment ago. The reason for that, if you push down onto that, you'll bend your needle and then it'll make it impossible to get it out of your air gun. So I'm just literally using this to go around the well to make sure to get rid of any residues of paint in there. So if you were changing from light to dark colours in your air gun, this is all you would need to do, okay, just to get rid of any residue of paint. And just working that around there. Okay, now as you can see, I'm being very gentle because I don't want to risk tipping this back. We don't want that cleaning solution going up and into the air valve, which is there. Okay, now the outside of the gun, as you can see, it just wipes off and cleans away. So we'll look at that later. We'll just wipe it over with a cloth. Once you've swirled around, make sure that you empty your air gun by pressing down and pulling all the way back. And as you can see, it's emptying. There's still a bit of paint in there, so I'm going to go back in with the Q-tip and see if I can get rid of that in there. There we go, that's coming out nicely. And be careful not to push down. I'm only cleaning around the top rim. Okay, just around the rim there. Do not push down at this stage. Okay, and again, empty your air gun. As you can see, all the bits coming out now. So they would have been the paint bits inside the gun. And as you can see, that looks much cleaner in there as a result. It's not fully clean because I haven't been able to get right down to the bottom as yet. Okay, so now we're going to look at taking the gun apart. So for this, I'm actually going to disconnect it from the compressor. So I'll turn the compressor off. Now the compressor will hold a certain amount of air. So I'm going to release that air from the pipe because I don't want it to go with a pop when I take the pipe off. There we go, so just release that air. Okay, now we can unscrew the pipe from here. And again, because there's no liquid in there now, it's okay for me to move the gun around. Once there's liquid in there, generally speaking, you would keep this area flat, so or forwards like that. So if you're putting it down with paint in it, make sure you've got a hanger to rest that in. Otherwise, what you'll find is that if you just lie it down, you're going to get paint everywhere and it's going to mess your gun up completely. You would need to send that off then for service, or you would need to know how to take the valve apart to put in a new valve as well. So first of all, the back unscrews from the air gun and we have a needle holder. So as you can see, when I pull that back, you can see it pulls the needle back. This is the needle here and this is the needle holder. So I need to unscrew that. Now you can take that off fully, but I tend to leave it just there and the needle should slide out. Okay, so as you can see, that bar is now gone. Now you can see what a very fine tip this needle is, and you can see there's paint all over this needle, which we're going to clean off in just a second. If you bend or dent that little spike, your paint spray is going to go off into a direction you don't want it to go. So that needle is incredibly delicate and quite often the main reason why some air guns fail. Okay, so placing that down. Using the same tissue I sprayed onto earlier, I'm going to gently clean off, being careful of that tip. Only wipe downwards on the tip. On the bar you can do backwards and forwards, but when you get to the needle, twist it and pull only. If you push onto that needle, you risk bending that very, very fine tip. And there we go. So I'm just taking off the last bit of paint off that needle, just like that. Okay. And there we go. So you can see now the needle is nice and clean. Okay, no paint residues left on there. And again, very, very, very delicate tip there. Be very careful. So now you've done that, it's a matter then of cleaning the rest of the paint out from inside there. Now that can get a little bit tricky. What I tend to do with my old needles, when I've damaged a needle, I'll actually keep an old one to actually pluck that out, okay? But at the moment I don't have any old needles, but you can use the back of your needle to like make sure that you can get in there. But again, be very, very careful, because if you bend this needle, your air gun will not work. Okay, so I'm going to put in a little bit more cleaning fluid, keeping the gun tilted forwards like so. And I'm going to go back to the cotton buds. I'm going to use the other side this time and see how much of that I can work out. Now, as you can see, it's dripping from the front, and that's because there's no needle in there to stop all of this coming through the tip of the air gun. We're going to take the tip apart in just a second. There we go. And that is much cleaner than it was. There's still quite a bit of paint in there, but again, it's not clogging up the gun, and you'd normally get rid of that with some heavy maintenance. We're just looking at general cleaning today. There. Okay, so that will do for now. Let me just see if the back of the needle can get any of this. Yep, it's coming loose. Okay, so again, if your needle starts bending though, don't. You just need to make sure that the fluid flow channel is completely empty. And you can do that also by pushing the needle back in very carefully and very gently. Because again, if you bend that tip, you see the needle coming through there, and push it through the tip. Okay, tighten that, and we're just going to literally wiggle that needle there. Okay, now to clean the front part here, always take your needle out, because that's where most of them get bent. Okay, so yep, sometimes you will need pliers to open the front part. Don't squeeze too tightly, but just enough to turn the tip. And here we have all the front assembly. Now again, this is where the needle comes through. So if I put the needle back in for now, I can actually show you where the needle comes through. And it comes through right at the very tip there. Okay, that's why I say take the needle out to do this part, because it's quite commonplace for that to get damaged. Okay, so we're going to need to clean that tip as well. And since it's quite fragile, because the needle does come through there, you've got to be incredibly gentle. So I'm going to literally just twist that in there like that. Don't squeeze it, otherwise you can cause further damage. Now you can buy new tips for these as well. Not a problem. They are available from most airbrushing websites. And we're going to take the back part apart as well. So again, your pliers, taking the tip off is quite simple. So this is a whole tip unit, okay, and you would purchase one of these to put onto your air gun. And we've got a little seal in there as well. Don't lose that seal, otherwise your air gun won't work properly. Now, as you can see, there's quite a lot of built up paint in there. So again, I'm using the back of my needle, and I'm literally just going to pull some of that out. There we go. Here it comes. There. So you can see we've got some of that out from there. You can keep playing with that for quite a while, but to be fair, you would only need to do that if your gun stops working. If it doesn't stop working, then it's fine to carry on using it. Generally speaking, a lot of this is just old buildup. A lot of people would buy new tips at this stage. I personally like to try and take the gunk out of the tip, so that's more clear than it was, so it's no longer clogged. And I'm just going to push the needle through to make sure it still comes through the tip, just like that, as you can see. So that sort of thing you would do only if your gun clogs. Okay, taking your front assembly apart. So remember, your seal goes on, and then we're going to close the air gun like that. I'm just going to make sure that it's got a good closure on there. So just a little turn with the pliers. I don't want air leakage coming out of there. So using the cloth that I sprayed onto earlier, I'm now going to give the gun a wipe around the outside. Some of this is quite old paint, but it will move. There we go. Now, any air gun that looks completely spotless is obviously a brand new one. So if there's spotlets of paint on it, don't worry, it just looks used. But as you can see, it does generally wipe off. So especially with the nail art paint, because it is acrylic based, so it wipes off with water or with your airbrush cleaning fluid. Okay, now with this particular gun, as you can see, this part comes out. It is important that you put that back in before your needle goes in, because your needle goes through that hole. So I'm going to pull that back and drop that in on the air valve. Okay, so that is general cleaning and just a small bit of maintenance. Anything further than that, personally, I take these apart quite often, but you know, you can send these off for service as well. So again, be very, very gentle when you're putting your tip back on. And there we go, making sure that the needle is working, the valve is working, everything feels okay with that gun. And put the back on to protect your needle. So that is your air gun. Now, let's plug it in and see if it works. So with the air valve, pop that back on there. Not overly tight, but you do need a good seal on there. There we go. We don't want air leakage. Turn on your compressor and wait for it to stop. And there we have. You can see some of the old, because we've loosened all the dirt, so some of the old paint that was in there. I actually last used white in this, so it shows that I did move some of the old black paint from before. So press down and pull back until your gun runs clear. One more rinse through, that should run nice and clear. Let's try on here. There we go, nice and clear. So now we can go in with lighter paints, or, you know, the gun's actually working now as opposed to being clogged as it was before. Still a few little bits coming out, so I'm just gonna blast through. So by doing this, you're actually pump blasting your gun as well with the cleaning solution. That will get rid of any of those loose bits that we created when we were cleaning the nozzle. Okay, cleaning the very tip of that. So we'll do that one more time. There we go, ready for fresh paint and use. Okay, so the pipes, as I was mentioning earlier, you have different types of pipes. So this one is a braided pipe. If you're using higher pressure, it is recommended that you get a braided pipe because they can take a lot more pressure. So depending on what you're working on, whether it be cakes, whether it be nails, whether it be hair design or makeup, you will require different pressures, or even painting. Some people do murals with air guns. You can also do like spray painting on cars, for example, designs and things like that as well. So I mean, there is the limitless application once you know how to use an air gun. It's then just a matter of knowing the pressure, the paint and the technique. And that's what we help with the course. So generally speaking, you've got the braided hose for the stronger pressures, and for nail art, you know, these pipes are perfectly okay. I am a bit of an airbrush snob, so I do like my braided hoses. Now this one is also coiled, which when you're doing nails can catch on the edge of the table. It can get a little bit annoying at times. However, it does help because when you compress your air, you get a lot of moisture build up in the pipe itself. And if you don't have a moisture trap on your compressor, the coiled pipe will help quite a lot. If you end up with too much moisture in the pipe, you'll end up getting spattering coming out and destroying the design that you've done. So I'm going to lift the compressor up now and show you what I mean by the moisture trap. So this is one of the many types of compressors that you can get. Okay, this one's got an outer casing on it, but most, if you actually look down there, you'll see it's very similar to design to most of the compressors that you can actually buy online. It is a good compressor. It doesn't have an air tank on it. Now an air tank, you would have an extra unit on the top here, and that would store compressed air and would release, so you don't get a spurt of air as you start using your air gun. Now what we're going to concentrate on is the front assembly here. Okay, so I'll turn that onto its side after I show you. This is the air valve. Once you have air buildup in your compressor, the pressure will tell you what it is, and you can either turn it down or turn it up by turning this knob here. So it's pull up, and then you can increase or decrease your pressure accordingly. Push down to lock. Now the air gun pressure, as you can see, there is pressure in there, and that's because it was switched on. Now it's switched off. If I press this, you'll watch the pressure valve go down as the air pressure is released. Now when you're setting your pressure, it's important to have running pressure. So that means press your airflow on your air gun and wait until you've got running pressure, which means the pressure that the valve is at whilst the gun is running, and then adjust your pressure accordingly on there. Now, what I was mentioning earlier about the moisture trap is this little thing here. So what will happen is as you compress the air inside here, you have an element of damp in the air, you get water in the air, that will collect. Now, if you haven't got one of these traps, what will happen is it will go up the pipe, it will splatter through your gun. It can clog your valve as well on your gun, but generally speaking, it will just splatter all over your artwork. So this will actually gather all of that, and every so often it's important to push that valve to release the water. So we've got a little thing on the side there, so I use my nail to push that up and all the water just pours out. So you need a little cup under there. It is important, if your machine is running all day, to make sure that every 30 minutes or so you empty your moisture trap. Otherwise, again, you will end up with spattering on your artwork to destroy it. Okay, so all of this is covered on our airbrushing course, as well as full maintenance and the actual airbrush control and how-tos. So if any of you are interested, just have a look at our website and give us a call. We look forward to hearing from you. See you next time.